The ghosts are moving tonight. Rest tonight. Rest tonight.
Hello there. Hi. Hello, Internet. Hello, Facebook. Hello, YouTube. And hello, you one sole person that watches out there on Twitch. Thank you very much, even if you don't say anything. Tonight, we're going to do a movie gold. Stato's taking a wee break, but I see that he is in the chat there. And also, Not My Monkey. Good to see you in there. Technically, Peephole Circus was first, but YouTube must have reset and his messages disappeared, but that doesn't count because you're first on the night. Good to see you. And yourself, Pete, good seeing you, man. Yeah, so tonight's show is one that I'm really excited about because I love these movies and I'm really excited to talk about the man who made these movies. And these movies I'm talking about are, Revenge of the Ninja, Ninja 3, The Domination, American Ninja 2, The Confrontation, Avenging Force, lots of great stuff, and also a little bit of Electric Boogaloo, if that's what you're into. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring him in himself. It's the man, it's the legend from Canon Films. I would say the guy who had defined the whole style of the Ninja movie. It's Mr. Sam Firstenberg. Hello, Sam.
Hello, Willie. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm buzzing. It's great to meet you. Thanks very much for doing this. And we're going to talk about your career and ninjas and all that kind of stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'll go to the chat every now and then, see if anybody's got any questions for you. But I've got some stuff here, basically just to get us started. And the first thing I just want to know is, like, when you were growing up and you were a kid, what was it that got you interested in making movies?
First of all, I'm happy to be in your show. Thank you for inviting me. And then I don't know the answer. I was a kid interested in movies. I lived in the neighborhood. I grew up in Jerusalem, and in the neighborhood where I grew up in, there was a neighborhood theater, movie theater.
Right.
So I was one of those kids that goes every week to see Double Bill in the afternoon matinee. And then I loved movies. I was fascinated by this whole concept of the moving images on big, huge screen, and the story being told in a visual way. And I was the kid that comes back to the block, to the neighborhood, and tells the story, tells the movie to the other kids. And then at some point I started to do my own like shows, cutting pictures from books and putting it in presenting it to the other kid. So that's how I was introduced. This was my first film school, this little tiny small movie theater in the neighborhood.
And was it just all kinds of movies then? Yeah, it was like westerns, that kind of stuff.
This was the 50s, the 1950s, and the main portion of the diet was, of course, American movies. Now, because I grew up in Israel, we saw all kinds of movies, Italian movies, a lot of Italian movies, French movies, but the major portion was, of course, American movie, war picture, gangster picture, action, westerns, a lot of westerns, of course, Tarzan, some musicals, the movies of the 1950s and maybe earlier. And I grew up, I was born in 1950, so it was the 50s, 55,
Yeah.
56, 57, 1957. And that's what we saw, mainly Westerns. Westerns was the big things. And as I say, American movies. But here and there, we, of course, we saw Italian movies, Spanish, Turkish movies, sometimes a movie from India. So this was the kind of the stuff I grew up with.
That's cool. So a whole wide variety. Yeah, that's kind of like when I was growing up as well. You still be able to go and see double bills in matinees and all that kind of stuff. And I was lucky as well because television was showing a lot of the old movies. So you were all these things from the 40s and the 50s and 60s and 70s were all getting fed to me when I was a child. It was fabulous. So it was. Pete has said hello, and you're a legend with 3 exclamation marks, so you are, Sam. And as Stato was pointing out, there's quite a few of your movies currently on Tubi. If anybody in America, or if anybody isn't in America and has a VPN, you'll be able to watch some of Sam's movies on Tubi. If you're watching this and you haven't seen them, highly recommend them all. So, yeah. Actually leads me to this, because your first movie, which is available to watch on Tubi.
It's interesting. It's a rare movie. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's because I hadn't seen it, and I watched it a couple of weeks ago when I saw it was on there, and it was. Is this right? This was your student movie that you enlarged to make a feature. Was that what it was?
It was in Israel. When I finished high school, there is a mandatory military service, 3 years. So by the time I finished the service, I was already 21. After high school, after the military, 21, and by then I already developed my taste in films. Of course, 16, 17, 18, 20, 21. So, and I really concentrated on American movies. I was never crazy about any Fellini or any art movies from France. It didn't work for me. I like James Bond and American stuff, So I went from Israel to Hollywood to study film. I went to film school. This is 1972. I went to film school, and I started to work. I met Menachem Golan, who was an Israeli producer. I started to work with him and with all kind of jobs in the movie industry. Either it was technical, in grip, in electric, or either it was in a production, assistant director, which I really kind of concentrated, and I became assistant director. And so I went to school. I was assistant director for many years, and it leads up all the way to 1979, which I was assistant director in many movies. And I decided that I didn't want to do it. I wanted, by then I already knew. I graduated for film school, and I knew the craft. I know what it is, and I understood that the one that tells the story is the director, and the writer as well. The script writer as well, but the director is the one who tells stories, and that's what I wanted to do, to tell stories. And it was 1979. I was tired of assistant director. That's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to become a director. So I went back to film school, to graduate school, MA. And I decided, when I came to school, I was the oldest student from all the others. I was already 29. And the most experienced. I had 5 or 6 years experience of working in the movies. So I decided, while I'm in school here for 3 years or 2.5 years, 3 years, and we have to make a half-an-hour movie as a graduate project, I'm going to expand it and to make it into 90 minutes. Together with a friend, with David Womark, he produced, I wrote and directed. And that's how this movie that started as a 30-minute movie was expanded, and eventually became 90 minutes movie, a full feature movie. One More Chance. It's a social drama. Dramatic movie, not an action. Social drama, which was my the way I saw myself as making this kind of movies. That's what I wanted to make. Social awareness.
It's got an interesting cast because it was the first. Was it the first movie that was it Kirstie Alley appeared in?
Yeah, this was when I was casting. When we were casting the movie, the lead actor was Johnny LaMotta. Later was got famous in the television show Elf, but it was good theater. And we were looking for a lady part. It's not a romantic interest. It's just another part.
Yeah.
And we were casting, reading people, and one of them came in, Kirstie Alley. She was at that point she was still studying acting. She was in acting school, something. Or immediately I recognized the talent. I mean, she great acting talent, and she was cast to the part. It's not a big part in the movie. It's not a big role, but it was her first. So we started.
Yeah, cool.
It was her first film, her first acting film job.
And is it Johnny
And
LaMotta?
the rest is history. She became a star.
She did straight from that to Star Trek, and then look who's talking. And is it Johnny LaMotta? He was related to Jake LaMotta, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's related to Jake LaMotta.
Yeah, that's right.
To the boxer Jake LaMotta.
They're
from the same family, from New York. But Johnny LaMotta was a great actor, musician, and he came from musicals in New York, moved to Los Angeles. He did a lot of theater, some movies, and then he got a steady part in television. He passed away, sadly enough, but great talent, great talent. And I saw him in many stage shows, in musicals, great talent.
Yeah, cool.
We were good friends. We became good friends.
Yeah,
his lead role in this, in One More Chance, was his story, his character, a man who comes out of prison and trying to put his life together.
Yeah, he's got a really good screen presence. He's got a very interesting kind of persona. Yeah.
In the streets of Los Angeles, it features the streets of Los Angeles.
Yeah, it's got that nice kind of vibe that you got from 70s movies. It's got that nice kind of feel to it that I like, because I love like 70s movies, and it has that kind of atmosphere to it. I like that kind of stuff. I'm going to say hi to Bristolian Dave, who's joined us in the chat, and Burnt Scribe as well. Hey there, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, Dave.
Now, straight into Revenge of the Ninja, pretty much, wasn't it?
This was quite a shift. To make this movie One More Chance, it took a year and a half to make it. It was made with no money at all. All volunteers, we got together. As I say, I had a friend, a partner, David Womark, he was the producer, and we kind of put it together with no money. We had students, we were both in school, in film school, and so we used the school facility. The equipment came from the school, and all the students, all the crew was volunteer students, and all the actors worked for no money, just to be in a movie. And it took us, because of this hardship, because of this condition, it took us a year and a half to complete. At some point we had 60 minutes of movie, but we didn't have more money to finish the movie, the remaining 30 minutes. And by that time I found out that Menachem Golan and Yoram Globus, two producers, Menachem Golan was also a director, that I worked for them as an assistant director in the 70s. This was already 1980. We're talking about 1980. And I worked for them as assistant director for their company. So I knew them. And I heard that they purchased a company, Canon Film. It was a small company in New York. They purchased it, they moved it to Los Angeles. And since we didn't have any more money, we went to them with whatever we had, the 60 minutes, we showed them. And we explained we need a little bit more money, not a lot, but to complete the movie. And they gave us, they liked the material more or less. They gave us whatever amount of money that we needed to complete the movie. And it's a very small movie, no actors, it was not any commercial success by any means, but the movie took us to some festival. We're talking about One More Chance. Took us to some film festival, Cannes Film Festival, Locarno in Switzerland. It got some award in Chicago Film Festival, International Film Festival. And by then, the company already made one movie, which is called Enter the Ninja, with Franco Nero, Sho Kasugi. And the movie was doing well, was a moderate success. And for them, it's a young company. The company was an established company, but for them, it was a young company. And they started. And immediately they wanted to make a sequel because they made some money with this one, with Enter the Ninja. And they introduced to the Western world this idea of ninja, which was not familiar, was not part of the martial art, the Western type of martial art movie. And they wanted to do a sequel immediately. Now, this movie, Enter the Ninja, was directed by Menachem Golan, the head of the company. And but when the time came to do Revenge of the sequel, and they already had a name, Revenge of the Ninja, he didn't want to direct it. Maybe he was too busy with running the company, probably. And by then, I just finished this movie. I just finished this One More Chance. So they basically turned to me and he said, listen, you know about Enter the Ninja? We want to make a sequel, Revenge of the Ninja, and can you direct it? And of course, I'm a young director. I just finished one movie. What am I going to say? Of course, I can direct it. No question. Just give me the chance. I said, but they say, well, but you know, there is action. You directed a dramatic movie. What do you know about action? I said, listen, guys, don't worry. I will learn the subject. So that's how I landed. That's how I was entrusted. Almost, you can say almost by accident, because I was around, because I just finished the movie, and they realized, okay, this guy can put together a movie. So, excellent. And he's cheap. He's not expensive. So let's give him a chance. So that's how I landed this job. That's how I was entrusted to direct this Revenge of the Ninja.
Excellent. Pete saying he watched it again last night, and it's one of his absolute favourites. He mentions there, to forgotten how cool Little Kane was in it. I mean, I think I'd say you were very lucky having somebody like Sho Kasugi to do a ninja movie. How important was it that Sho Kasugi, was there as your star?
So, in the previous movie, Enter the Ninja, the star was Franco Nero, the Italian actor Franco Nero, and the villain was a Japanese American actor, Sho Kasugi, and he's a martial artist. He's the real thing. And when people see Enter the Ninja, they see how good he is. And the company was very impressed by Sho Kasugi. So when they decided to do Revenge of the Ninja, all of this prior to my involvement, they already decided that he's going to be the star. He's going to be the hero this time, not the villain. He will carry the movie. He will be the protagonist. And they already started to work on the script. Maybe even the script was almost finished. And so the writer, he was working with the writer, Jim Silk. And when they approached me, maybe they tried to approach other directors. I don't know. But once when they approached me, Sho Kasugi was already part of the deal, and the script was already almost finished. It was almost done, and I was luckily so, because I didn't know anything about ninja. I never heard the word ninja. The only thing I saw this movie, Revenge of the Ninja, Enter the Ninja, and furthermore, I never saw a Hong Kong martial art movie in my life. What we used to call kung fu movies, karate movies. Remember, in the 50s and the 60s. So, I heard about maybe Octagon or some, but I never saw a movie like this in my life. My only background was samurai movies. Akira Kurosawa, Japanese samurai movies. I love samurai movies. Yeah. I never saw martial art. So, luckily, I'm saying luckily, Sho Kasugi was around, and he embraced me, and he trusted me. And he introduced me to this whole subject of ninja, ninjutsu. He recommended few books in English. I so we bought the book. I read the book. So suddenly I was introduced to this whole. So I was a little bit familiar with the samurai and shoguns, the culture of samurai and shoguns. But here I learned about those evil assassins, the ninjas, which are part of the mythology and the history of Japan, of course, in martial art. And he introduced me to the weapon. He was the one who introduced me to the Hong Kong style of filming of karate movie, martial art movie. He showed me those movies in Chinese without translation. So it was fun. So that's how he became the star. And luckily, as I said, luckily he took me under his wings to introduce me and to teach me all this subject. And that's how, and we work together very well, because let me explain. When I saw this kind of martial art movies, which are really concentrated in martial art, it was not my intention. I didn't want to make a movie like this when I was introduced to this. I wanted to make James Bond. That's what I wanted to make. So it already formed in my mind that I'm going to make a hybrid movie. This Revenge of the Ninja is going to be semi-martial arts, semi-Hollywood action. Let's call it. Let's call it James Bond action. And luckily enough, Kasugi saw it the same way. He also wasn't purist about let's make a movie which is only about martial art and only martial art combat. But he loved Hollywood, just like he loved Hollywood movies. So he was together with me. We were in the same wavelength of thinking. He also wanted a movie with general action, Hollywood action mixed together with action. So that's how we started, and we went along.
It definitely worked, because I think I remember even just some of the sequences in that film when I saw it in VHS, just rewinding them again and watching them. Some of the action scenes, because for a medium kind of, I'm guessing it was to be a medium budget movie. The editing and the action, the way it was shot was really good, really impressive. And that's when I first realised I need to watch for more films with your name on them, because that's the kind of thing you did when you were in the video rental store. You'd look at the back, and then quite quickly, if you saw a movie that had Sam Firstenberg on it and it was a Canon film, that's the one you'd be renting that night. That's kind of like a no-brainer after seeing Revenge of the Ninja. Although the version that I saw, and it was like Pete, who's in the chat, asked me to talk about this. The version I saw was very censored. Because the British censor cut quite a lot out of the movie when it was first released. Were you aware that was happening to your films over here?
Yeah. So first of all, in regard to the budget, that's exactly what you're mentioning. At the time we called. Of course, it was an independent movie. We were not connected to the studio, so it was not a studio movie. So we didn't have this enormous budget that action movies of the studios will have. It was an independent. It was a small company at the time. Canon was a small independent company, and we called those movies low budget. Today, I know that they were not low budget. They were exactly what you're saying, medium budget, because we were filming for 9 weeks, 8 principal weeks, and another additional week, 9 weeks of action with 2 units. It wasn't small. And today we know that the money came from the explosion of the field of home video. There was money in this was the beginning of the home video movement, and the company, the independent companies, made their monies from selling copies to the video companies, to the video store, to the rental. And so there was enough money. There was enough money to make a decent type of a movie. And as you mentioned, there is action. And one of my decisions right away from the beginning was that I'm going to insist of 45 minutes action. The movie is 90 minutes. So if we are calling it action movie, I want to see 45 minutes of action. Half the movie, 50% of the movie is going to be action. No talking, no dialogue, nothing. So today I know that we had at the time, I didn't think about it because they gave me the resources were there. I was not limited. They never told me. Of course, a studio movie, they're shooting 18 weeks. We were 9 weeks. But they didn't limited me in any way. So, and me and the stunt people and the action people, and so we came up with crazy stuff and we executed.
Yeah.
We executed what we with our imagination took us.
And it looked
So you're
painful
right.
when you watched
For
it.
independent, low budget movie, it looks the
Yeah.
action looks pretty good.
Yeah, I think it looks great. I've got some people in the chat are asking questions, so I'm going to bring them. But Adams has joined us, and he's asking here. He's wondering what you thought about Matsaki Hatsumi. How was it working with him? No,
I think it's a name that you're asking. Matsaki is not a familiar name to me, but let me tell you, Sho Kasugi was really the boss of the martial art. He was taking care. He was and he was always surrounded. He brought the people in, most of the people in who were his assistant, the stunt double, the fighting doubles. Sho Kasugi brought in. Now we also had stunt coordinator Steve Lambert, and he brought his people, stunt double. So I don't know the names of all the people that came with Sho Kasugi. Yeah. They were his students. Sho Kasugi was already, having dojos and teaching, and he brought some of his students to help him, and as a stunt fighter, fighting doubles, and nemesis. They have to fight people. The hero is to fight some bad guys through the story. So probably, maybe Sho brought, maybe he was around, and I don't remember the name.
Right. I'm having a look here. Okay, here we go. Right. Burnt Scribes asked you a question. I'm going to ask you it later on, though. I'm going to ask you a wee bit later on. But because you've already mentioned it, and Not My Monkeys in the chat has said, please make a James Bond movie. Pete Bakewell is just wanting to know what you thought of the last Bond movie. What do you think of the last Bond movie, Sam?
We are entering here. Your question is leading us to an interesting field in the action, to an interesting issue in the action movies. Mm-hmm. Well, in the beginning, if you take westerns, even westerns which are full of action, of course, chases, fight sequences, gunfight sequences, hand-to-hand fight sequences, and later on, or let's say I grew up with Tarzan's movie, full of action, and later on the movies we made in the 80s. The action that we had to produce was physical action. Everything that you see in the movie was really performed on the floor, on the stage. We didn't have the optical effect capability that exists today. And so when I'm saying everything that you see in the movie, we performed. There are some tricks, but the tricks were not optical tricks on the computer. There are some physical tricks. But if people fight each other, they do fight. Of course, they don't hurt each other. The blood is fake, but they did it, and it was physical, and they fell to the floor, and they jumped from a building, etc. Mm-hmm. Later, now when we enter the 2010 with the capability and capacity of computer and special effect and optical effect, a lot of the action that we see today in the movie is not performed physically. It's done on the stage with the blue screen, green screen, or any other optical effects. And of course, you see nowadays, you see a car drives and jumps from one building to the other building, but of course, it cannot be done physically. or whatever, Spider-Man swings around the building, things like this, which are all optical. And lately, in the last 10, 15 years, there is a nostalgic resurrection of the old movies from the 80s, which the action was physical. You take Stallone, you take Schwarzenegger, doesn't matter. All of those movies were actually physical action. And there is a resurrection. People, some people because of nostalgic reason, but young people can feel the difference. They see the old movies. Of course, the new action is much more fantastic. I mean, spectacular. But they can feel they can feel the difference. They can feel that the hero of the movie really participated in the fight, and he didn't just come from a couple of close-ups and other stunt doubles will do it.
It's when you see Shogashugi jump through a windscreen. That's
So
Shogashugi
jumps,
jumping through a windscreen.
Of course, we use stunt doubles. You know, you don't endanger use heroes, and some spectacular moves are done by specialists, but
it's a real person.
And so it brings us back to James Bond, No Time to Die. What I liked about the movie, it went back to this feeling of physical action. It was really, I didn't see a lot. Of course, I'm sure they used some optical effects, but not a lot. Not a lot. And the camera work was more like in the 80s. Nowadays, action is cut so quickly that it's hard to comprehend. I mean, the cumulative effect you understand of the many little cuts, you can feel the action, but it doesn't have the same sense of to show the choreography, to stay a little bit longer with the shot, that you see the choreography, the move of the martial artists, how they move. And James Bond, the last James Bond, kind of took me back to this feeling of, let's not go crazy with special effect, with optical special effect, and try to do some physical stuff with the camera really down on the earth, and the actors and the stunt people really performing what they are doing. So if the motorcycle goes up the stairs or down the stairs, you see that they really did it. They did it.
Yeah, I think that
I was happy to see this James Bond.
Yeah, I think you definitely get a different sense of being invested in the movie if you think, or you feel there's a real person involved in the action. I think that definitely is something. So, I mean, Revenge of the Ninja, that was, you made two sequels to Enter the Ninja, but none of them are really sequels. They're all their own movie.
Yeah.
And when you got to the third one, that was a little bit of a different take on the Ninja movie. I mean, Pete asked me earlier on to ask you this as well. Do you think Ninja 3, The Domination, with its female lead, was ahead of its time?
So, first of all, you're right. The Canon, the company, I mean, the policies that dictated by the company, not by me. So they made 3 movies. They are not connected to each other, only by title, only by the word ninja. There is no connection. Shokasugi is the only link between the three movies, but not story-wise, not character-wise, nothing to do with each other. And when we finished this Revenge of the Ninja, Canon was a young company, as I say, young, beginning. And MGM, which is a major studio, they liked the movie and they took it for distribution. Up to this point, Canon company was not able to obtain a major distribution for any of their movies that they produced. So they distributed their own movie, small scale in North America. And suddenly MGM saw Revenge of the Ninja and said, we like it, they liked it. They took it for distribution and they gave it a correct distribution in North America, Canada, US and Canada, and around the world in major markets, let's say England, let's say France, Germany. And suddenly the movie was suddenly recognized. It had a success, let's say, not a humongous success. Again, it's not James Bond, but it has a pretty good success. With many prints all over the world, cassettes, etc. And they obviously immediately they wanted to make a sequel. Okay, we need another sequel. And the decision, the principal decision not to have Shokasugi as the main character, main hero, but rather move to a woman, to a lady ninja, was a decision of the company, the head of the company, Menachem Golan. He suggested it to me. He called me in and said, okay, we're making a sequel. This was good. Let's make another one. But this time, no Shokasugi in the lead part. And let's make it with a woman. He believed. it was, after the success, I believe, of Sigourney Weaver, kind of, there was a feeling that you can make a movie, an action movie with a woman. Was not successful in our case, but anyway.
Well, it's become something of a cult classic, and Adam says it's unbelievably good, and I love it as well.
So here is what happened. He wanted a woman, and we got the same writer, Jim Silk, the same writer who I worked with in Revenge of the Ninja, and we are trying to come up with what can we do here, what kind of a story, but of course we'll have a hero, a heroine, but Sho Kosugi was probably upset that he was not the lead, the main character, and he rejected the idea that a woman will be a lead ninja. There were some women ninja in Chinese movies. They're usually like a bunch of bad girls. They come in and they do evil stuff and they disappear. But I don't think there is a movie with a lead lady ninja ever before. But they appeared in movies. They were here and there. And then not long ago, somebody corrected me and sent me a list of all the Japanese and Chinese movies with women ninja. But they were always evil. So Sho was against the idea, and he was really vehemently against it and voicing it. And we didn't know which way to go, how to resolve the problem that he doesn't like the idea, to pacify him. And at the same time, to make a movie that he will still look good because he had a part in the movie. And at the time, the movie Poltergeist came out, really influenced me. Toby Hooper directed Poltergeist. I love Poltergeist. And The Exorcist was just not long prior to this. And another influence was Flashdance, came out before. And Flashdance, you have a woman. She's physical. And all of this together kind of, brought up the idea, the click. And I was talking with Jim Silk, the writer, and I said, how about if we have a woman and she's possessed by a ninja, by the spirit of a ninja? She's not a ninja physically, never trained. She's not but there is a spirit of a ninja that took over her body, and that's how she becomes a ninja, not through her own training. Of course, we need a woman that has some physical abilities, so we went with this the same kind of character, like Flashdance. She's working for a telephone company. She climbs board, and she's an aerobic dancer instructor, so she has the ability to move for all the moves. And this idea was accepted by everyone, including Sho Kosugi, which we gave him a lot of respect. We wanted him and we needed him, and that's how. So from that point on, it evolved. I started to work with Jim Silk and another idea influenced by the 3 movies that I just mentioned. And once you start to deal with fantasy, with this world of possession, more and more crazy ideas were thrown into the mix of this script, into this soup. And what we see today is this mixture of all the genres mixed together. And somehow, I must admit, that the movie was not as successful as Revenge of the Ninja, box office wise and popularity, I think, at the time. But as you have mentioned, years later, jump to this was 1987. 1984, before American Ninja. American Ninja was 85. So this was 1984, and the movie played theater, played cassettes. Went out on a cassette and kind of disappeared. 20 years later, suddenly it was resurrected and adapted by the crowd, the cult film crowd. They love it. And they embrace this movie, and it's gaining in popularity as the years are advancing. It's gaining more and more in popularity among the cult movie audience.
I've recommended it to many people, just because it's like there's just you don't know what's going to happen next. It turns that it takes.
It plays in film festivals. It plays in private screenings. I was invited to a screening that some of the audience came dressed up with ninja outfit. They know the lines, they throw the lines to the screen, just like in the movie The Room. It's a funny phenomenon. It's amazing. I'm really amazed because we didn't, when we made it, we did not believe that the movie will sustain or will more than 1 year of life.
It's just so much fun. That's what it is. The movie is. It's just so much fun. But I mean, I kind of again another like real left turn. Going well, not too much. I suppose you could see a connection here because I think your next one you did was Electric Boogaloo. That was a bit of a hit, though, wasn't it?
So there is a connection here. When we were casting for Ninja 3 The Domination, we needed a woman with either we knew we have to find either a martial artist that can fulfill and can do it, because we need some. As I mentioned before, we did our own stunt. Not myself, thank God, but the actors had to do their own stunt and their own action. So we needed either a martial artist, and the other option was if we find a dancer. A dancer can pick up the move. You know, they can teach her. The action people can teach her the move very quickly. And we started to look, and we did the casting sessions, and from all the ladies we saw, we liked Lucinda Dickey the best, and we she was contracted, you know, she was hired by the company, and we made the movie Ninja 3 The Domination with her. She was a dancer, and therefore she picked up the moves of the ninja move, whatever the choreographer had to show her and to teach her, whoever it was, either Sho Kasugi or Steve Lambert, and she did it, and it's convincing, she did it good. At that time, the company started to develop a concept which was Breakin, the movie Breakdance, and the two lead dancers were already there, Shabadoo and Shrimp, and Michael Shrimp. But they looked, the story, they needed also a dancer, but a novice, a dancer that doesn't know break dance, but she's, and Lucinda just finished breaking Ninja 3 The Domination. They saw her, the company saw her, and they recruited her. She was cast as this part in the movie Breakin. And while we were editing, they were shooting the movie Breakin, they edited it, and the movie came out to the screens before Ninja 3 The Domination. So some people are confusing. They think that we took her after we saw Breakin, but it was the other way around. The people who made Breakin, the director, the casting, they saw her in Ninja 3 and they took her from there. And this was enormous success. I'm talking, Breakin was the biggest success so far for Canon Film. Huge. Millions and tens of millions in box office, huge success. So they wanted to do a sequel immediately, fast, within the same year, to come with the sequel in the same year. And for some reason, just like it happened to me with Revenge of the Ninja, for some reason, they did not hire the same director, or the same director was busy. The director who directed Ninja, Joel Silver, and they turned to me. They said, "Okay, we have to do a sequel to Breakin. It will be Breakin 2, and you will direct it. Can you direct?" "Oh, of course. I love musicals. I love musicals." So that's how I got involved. That's how I was interested in, or recruited to direct Breakin 2. And also the phrase Electric Boogaloo was already there before, when I was approached, when I was attached to hired to direct it. They already had this phrase, the title Breakin 2 Electric Boogaloo was already there. The script was not finished. The script was still in the middle of writing when I was hired. So I already knew Lucinda, and I was introduced to Shabadoo and to Michael Chambers, and that's how I got involved in a dance movie, Breakin 2. Luckily, I
guess with the martial arts and the dancing and the choreography, it's just finding a way to know how to film it properly. Is there similarities, or is it a different approach?
A lot of similarities. Actually, it sounds, when you hear it first, you say, "Whoa!" You move from violent action to gentle dancing. But but the truth is that there is a lot of similarities, and I will explain it. When we make an action movie, it's at a certain point the movie comes to an action sequence. Either it will be a chase, a fight, action sequence. Now, I do not choreograph action sequences. I don't have the knowledge, enough knowledge. So we have choreographer, we have stunt coordinators, we have choreographer. So, and it takes a lot of time to prepare an action sequence. So while I'm working and maybe shooting some dramatic scenes, they prepare the action. Now, of course, the decisions are made in pre-production. Usually we have a storyboard. We map up the action. So we know this is going to be a chase, let's say between 3 cars and a van, and the good guys in the van, the bad guys in the cars, whatever it is. So we map the action sequence, and we have always we have a storyboard artist, and I work with the storyboard artist to map the action, the blocks of the action and the different highlights of the action. Then the action people have to go and take it and choreograph it physically. So they choreograph, and when it's ready, when it's choreographed, and they have assistants, they have doubles, and when it's choreographed, they show it to me as a director. And either I make comments, either I veto some parts, either I make a suggestion or ask them to change or to add, whatever. And they go and they complete the action sequence. Now, when the sequence is choreographed, and it's just like a dance number, and my job is now with the cinematographer to interpret this into the screen, to translate the action that we see physically and put it on the screen in the most effective way. Let's say in the most effective, aesthetic, and exciting way. It is so similar when it comes to dance. I definitely don't know anything about dance as a director. I'm not Bob Fosse. So we have a choreographer. In this instant, we had Billy Goodman, was the choreographer in Breaking to Electric. Well, together with Shabadoo, they are choreographers. They know. So they put. So it's similar. In pre-production, we map the dance number. We know what is the purpose of every dance number. What is the dramatic point within the dance? Okay, they are going to dance down the streets, the neighborhood. The characters are going to join in by the end that they reach some kind of an intersection. So we know the map of the dance. Then the choreographer has to go and really choreograph every move within the dance. That's without me, because I'm busy doing other stuff. The director is busy. And when the choreography is ready, maybe a day before the filming, whatever, maybe the day of the film, they show it to me. They show me the dance number. If I have any dramatic comments, any comments that had to, I cannot comment on the moves. I don't understand dance moves. And again, once it's ready, once I saw it, once they did the adjustments, and now, again, my job is to interpret it into the screen, into the visual language, just like I have to do with the fight sequence or with an action sequence, to make it exciting, beautiful, aesthetic on the screen. So it's a different mood. We don't deal with the swords, knife, and blood, but we still have to put this number, so-called the choreograph number, into the big screen in the most effective, beautiful, exciting way. Involved, captive way.
Talking about swords and blood and so on, that leads me on to your next movie, and a question that Burnt Scribe asked a wee while ago. I'll bring it up here. Next up for you was American Ninja, which has had a life well beyond and spawned an actual, 4 if you count 5 sequels. This was originally supposed to be a movie with Chuck Norris, wasn't it? And then you came on, but Chuck was nowhere to be seen. What's the story behind American Ninja?
So you are correct. The company at that point, we are now in 1985. At that point, the Canon company have contracted. They had a contract with Chuck Norris to work exclusively only for them. And I think they already produced the movie Missing in Action. probably, yeah, I think so, with the Shokasu, with the Chuck Norris, and he was exclusive working for Canon, exclusive. Menachem Golan, the head of the company, had this idea, let's make a ninja movie. Then it was good. You know, the buyers around the world were not interested anymore in breakdance. The breakdance craze was over within 1 year, 1.5 years, it was over. And they wanted more ninja movies. Ninjas were good. So I'm not credited with this idea of American ninja, but rather Menachem Golan, the head of the company. So he had this idea, American Ninja, and he called me in again, and he said, we're going to make another action ninja movie. This time, the hero is going to be American Ninja. This is quite revolutionary. We abandoned the whole Japanese idea, the Japanese background, and we are moving to American Ninja. They approached, I was not involved in approaching Chuck Norris, as I said, because he was already part of the so-called Canon family. He was exclusive, so I think they approached him and asked him to be the hero in American Ninja, to do the part. And he's a martial art, you know, Chuck Norris. I don't have to expand on who Chuck Norris is, but I understand that he rejected. I was not involved. I was not privy to all of this. And I understand that he rejected, but they already made a poster. There is a poster, Chuck Norris, American Ninja, Sam Firstenberg. I have this poster.
Yeah, and, he's flying through the air with his leg out.
Maybe without asking him, they already put out the poster. But he rejected it. From what I understand, he didn't want to be covered. He's Chuck Norris. He didn't want to be covered face, to cover his face. So
yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
They didn't tell me that he rejected or anything. They just told me, go ahead and find, go ahead. And by that point, there was not even a script. There was not even there was only a title, American Ninja. There was no idea yet where we were going with it. Nothing. When Chuck rejected it, when Chuck Norris rejected it. So I was again asked to do it. There were two producers, Gideon Amir and Avi Kleinberger, and there was a writer, a different writer, Paul DeMilke this time. Not Jim Seal. And all of us, this was the core group that was entrusted, and they told us, go ahead, make a movie about American Ninja. There was no script, there was nothing, just an idea. And the only other restriction was that you guys have to go and shoot it in the Philippines, just like they did the first movie, Enter the Ninja. They probably had some money, some financial incentive, I don't know. And we started from zero. So the script, the character, came up with the character of Joe Armstrong, the character of Curtis, which was Steve James later, and the love story, the idea that he's in the Philippines, he's in a foreign country, he's a soldier in a foreign country, in a military base. All of this was developed while we were looking for the character of American.
Steve James and Michael Dudikoff were just perfect casting for that movie. They just worked so well together.
Yeah. So within writing the script, the concept of this American hero that has a sidekick, and it kind of lent itself to that idea, especially in the 80-85, that one of them would be a white guy, one of them would be a black guy, both of them in the military, both of them martial art, more or less, and it will be a buddy movie. This is a standard in American cinema, not only in general in drama. You have so many dramatic plays and movies that Butch Cassidy situation and Sundance Kid, and Maltese Falcon, any movie, so many movies with this premise in the center of it. And we wanted a romantic love story and a story of a betrayal, of internal betrayal, that where the hero and the audience believe that they go one direction, and in the middle of the movie there is a switch, and you find out that the people that you trust, they're not trustworthy. And we developed the character of the American Ninja, reluctant hero, a type of a hero that does not want to get involved, like High Noon. He does not want to get involved in the action, but the circumstances and his background are leading him to a point that he cannot avoid it anymore. He must get involved in the action and take part in the action and see that justice is done. So all of this, all those elements were there, and that's how the script was developed. Next stage was to find the American Ninja, the Joe Armstrong, and to find Curtis Jackson. And there was to find the American Ninja, Joe Armstrong, we did an open call. We saw like 400 young men. And the qualification was, first of all, that they had to be, they didn't have to be, we didn't look for martial artists specifically, but somebody who will be capable of physical, athletic actor that will be able to execute what is needed, what is demanded in such a movie. And we start, and as I say, we saw 400. It was narrowed down to do like 10 or 5 people. Eventually we got Michael Dudikoff, because I really believed in it, that he fit the exactly the mold of the character that we had in mind when we wrote the script, with this reluctant hero, James Deanish type of
yeah, he's definitely got that whole kind of moody James Dean quality.
Rebel without a cause type of character. And his buddy. Steve James was very easy. He just walked in. He was just fit in. He was a martial artist, and he just fit into part. Then we looked for the romantic interest, and we ended up with Judy Aronson. She was in Friday the 13th prior to this. Now, Michael already had one movie. Michael already was acting in television shows starring the family. He was already in Bachelor Party with Tom Hanks. And he already starred in a movie prior to this, which was called The Radioactive Dream. Albert Payun directed.
Oh, yeah.
And so he already had the experience, and a very athletic young man. So this was the choice. Now, what you are saying, the chemistry, etc., those are, when you are at the beginning of a movie, those are big question marks. You cannot predict. It's impossible to predict what will be the result if you put 2-3 actors together, and to see the chemistry and the charisma on the screen. It's very hard to predict. Of course, there are a few stars that you know what they can do. You know what Tom Hanks can do by now after so many movies. But when you make a movie with virtually unknown people hopefully, and it happens even with big stars. Sometimes you put 2 big stars on the screen and the chemistry is not there. It doesn't work. So, so we were lucky. By all means, we were very lucky. Michael has the charisma on the screen. He has the right attitude to fulfill this character, to portray. Let's say, to portray this character of Joe Armstrong. The chemistry between him and Steve James was fantastic. And the romantic story worked very well with Judy. So we were very lucky with those three guys. Chemistry, charisma, projection on the screen, likability, and so on and so on. And it worked. And then we are answering the question that we saw on the screen. It became a huge hit.
Yeah.
When the movie came out, we did not expect, with the wildest imagination, we didn't expect what really happened eventually with American Ninja, with the explosion worldwide. No, I'm not talking only about North America. I'm not talking about only the Western world culture. Worldwide explosion. The only one place it was not, in the beginning, was not accepted was Japan. He did not like the idea of American in Japan. But nowadays, I know that there is a Japanese release of the movie, videos, etc., DVD. But the explosion was enormous, and with the year, it became a cult. The success was so big, and it was American Ninja #2.
Yeah, well, you say 2 because that came along really quickly. Because I think within but it seemed like no time whatsoever with the same two stars. There was American Ninja, and you did Avenging Force and American Ninja 2.
Right, right.
It seems like you
So
just didn't
in a sense,
stop.
in a low budget sense, the American Ninja became a cultural hero, you know, a cultural symbol, equivalent to Tarzan at the time. You know, when I was a kid, there was Tarzan. Tarzan was the American Ninja of my childhood. On a different scale, James Bond 007 on a different scale. You know,
Yeah.
Of course, I don't want to compare, but a new hero. A new cinematic hero was created, Joe Armstrong, the American Ninja.
Yeah.
And when we came back, it was done in the Philippines, and we came back to Los Angeles for the editing. We did the editing in Los Angeles here, where I am right now, in the offices of Canon Film. And we are editing the movie, and kind of people can tell that there is something special in the movie, but we didn't know. It was impossible to predict. We don't know. You cannot predict success. And Menachem Golan approached me with a script which is called Avenging Force, another script that was rejected by Chuck Norris because it was a sequel to Invasion USA, I think. Yeah.
It's very much.
Hunter is the character of Invasion USA. Yeah.
Yeah. Avenging Force is very much like, because I watched it again recently, and it's very much like Hard Target, which came along later, the John Woo film. There's a lot of similarities there.
Now, you know, it was written by an English actor, James Booth.
That was my next question there.
Yeah, and he was in the movie, but he wrote the script, James Booth, and he wrote it for Chuck. It was written specifically for Chuck Norris. I didn't, again, at the time, I didn't know about it. I didn't know it all. I discovered it years later. And so I was approached because they saw Michael Dudikoff, Steve James, and Menachem Golan asked me, do you think that this script, can you read the script and tell me if it will fit Michael and Steve? Because there are characters like this. And I read the script and I was blown away. What a script! James Booth wrote the script. I said, "Wow, what a script with a social message, with a issue, with racial tension. What a script! Fantastic! With the hunting, human hunting, the ultimate game in the bios of Louisiana." Say, "Oh yeah, let's do." Yeah, it's a great script. By then, the company was already growing. By then, they already had Chuck Norris, they Charles Bronson. They already started to make a little bit bigger movies than what we started with. And I said, yeah, let's do it. It's a great script. And they sent me over. They said, okay. By then, the company was becoming big, and they didn't have any more patience for the smaller movies. They were busy with bigger movies. So I said, go ahead, make the movie. And we moved the company to New Orleans, to Louisiana, because that's where the story takes place, in Louisiana. And again, we have Michael Dudikoff and Steve James, and we are in Louisiana, and we are shooting the movie. And then we hear that American Ninja is coming out. We were in the middle of working when American Ninja was released in theaters and all over the world. And suddenly we start to hear the news, rumors or news of the explosion of the popularity of American Ninja. You know, you have to think about it. They could not use even Steve James and Michael Dudikoff. They couldn't use them in the promotion of the movie. They didn't go out to help to promote the movie because we were filming in Louisiana. And suddenly we hear about, you know, we learn about what's happening with American Ninja all over the world, and especially in America, the popularity. And when we finished this movie, Avenging Force, which is an action movie. It's not a martial art movie. And when we came, the same thing. We took the material back to Los Angeles to edit it in Los Angeles. And the company, they were hot already. They didn't care about Avenging Force. They wanted an American Ninja #2. They wanted right away sequel. So I was there in the editing room, and while I was in the editing room, they already assigned me to start with a writer to start to write a sequel, American. So in one hand, I was editing the movie. In the other hand, I was working with the writer, writing American Ninja #2. And I'll tell you, the day we finished the editing, the day we put the music, we finished. I saw the screening with the music. The next day, I was already on the airplane on my way to South Africa. That's where we filmed American Ninja #2. So they were so desperate to make American Ninja #2. So those three movies, they came in a chain, one after the other. American Ninja, Avenging Force, American Ninja #2 with no.
So
no
you were
in the three
in the Philippines for the first one. You were in South Africa for the second one. These probably couldn't have been the easiest places to be filming, I would, especially South Africa, because that was still during apartheid, wasn't it?
Correct. In the Philippines, it was professionally much easier. They just finished the movie with the big movie about Vietnam. What's the name of the movie?
Apocalypse Now.
Yeah. So there was a crew. There were good technical people there. The Filipinos who just finished to work with Coppola on the Vietnam movies, they were trained. This was a long scheduled movie. With Francis Ford Coppola, they worked for months. So we inherited the crew, and they were good, professional, experienced people. South Africa was a different story. It was apartheid, correct, but it was the end of the apartheid era, and there was no filmmaking industry in South Africa. Television, of course, every country had television. So we really inherited television crews or commercial making crews, but there was no major feature movie making tradition in South Africa. Probably local, because nobody in the world would accept a South African movie. Right? So this was the end of apartheid. When we were there in the month where we were there, the government or the authorities have changed major rule. Prior to our coming there were 3 different identification cards. There was, according to the races, what they used to call the white, the black, and the colored. So every one of them had a different card, the different color card. So when I was there, when we were at camp, it was a process that they unified. There was no more 3 different cards. There was one card to all the 3 races. There was still, we could feel apartheid a little bit. We'd go to places, to the ocean, to the beach, and you would see white only or bathroom. But people pay less and less attention to it. It was really the end days. And Steve James, I arrived earlier before them, and he was concerned. He called me a few times. I told him that the atmosphere is changing. There is not so bad. But the physical filming was more difficult in South Africa than we had to bring crew from Israel. We had to bring technical crew from Israel. Israel had a lot of experience. Jesus Christ Superstar, many big American movies were filmed in Israel. The Iron Eagle, later Rambo Rambo #3 was filmed. So Israeli crew is very trained in big international American movies. So we had to bring major, key player, technical from Israel to help the South African crew. And the stunt, I had to bring the stunt people who had to bring from here, from Hollywood.
No, right. So again, that was another hit, American Ninja 2, wasn't it? Or was that a smaller hit than the first one?
It was not a bigger or smaller budget. This was it was kind of the similar type of a movie. There are a lot of spectacular scenes in American Ninja #2. The first one is a little bit more spectacular, but it was 8 weeks of shooting with 2 units, comfortable. We had whatever we needed, we had. So there are some big action sequences, spectacular action sequences.
Yeah, I think the American Ninja 2's got some of my favourite scenes in it, and some of my favourite kind of bits between both of the actors. They seem very relaxed in it. And
it does. So exactly, it has a different atmosphere, completely different atmosphere from the first movie. And but still 45 minutes. My rule still stands: 45 minutes of action, 45 minutes of story. Small story, tiny story. Let's do some stuff. Let's show some stuff. And
brilliant. That's a good rule.
So there was. I know they continued without me. They did the American Ninja 3, 4, and 5, which are much smaller, which budget. Really,
they
schedule with all South African crew, much smaller. But not on American Ninja number 2. We brought some. We needed stunt people. We brought stunt people from Australia. There were South African stunt people. We imported from Australia stunt people to come and help us. But the coordinators, they all came with us from Los Angeles. Mike Stone and BJ Davis, the two main stunt fight choreographer and stunt coordinator. They came with us from Los Angeles. The wardrobe designer came from Los Angeles. Cinematographer came from Israel. And they kind of trained the locals, which later they continued without us.
Cool. I'm just checking the chat because
there is a fun. There is a atmosphere of fun and vacation and fun in American Ninja number 2.
It definitely is. There's more that sense of fun. And Not My Monkeys was asked a question here. He said, "Do you feel you were more free as a director back then than you would have been making films in the current climate in Hollywood? Do you think it was freer then?"
The difference is probably if a director works for a studio. The major studios are very controlling. There are so many people that the director have to please: the distribution, the story department, the production department. What we had in Canon, we were lucky that first of all the company was busy, but in general, the company Canon Film trusted me. I show them that I can put together an action movie. Okay, this guy can put together an action movie. So from way back, from Revenge of the Ninja, they trusted me. They did not bother me. And when we went out on filming, I executed almost everything that I and my crew wanted to execute it. Of course, sometimes the budget did not allow it. After all, we didn't have unlimited budget like the big studios. But creatively, they didn't bother us, and they did not get involved creatively at all. We did whatever we wanted to do. So I don't know if it's a matter of back then and nowadays, but it's more a matter of big budgets, low budget. In big budget, there are too many people involved. There are too many committees. In a smaller budget, the company depends. I don't know every other company. I can only talk about my experience. I was free to do whatever I wanted. And in this sense, I was lucky. I was very lucky.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to keep you too long, but you never directed any more American Ninja movies, but you did direct the second star of the American Ninja movies in American Samurai. Which was another kind of Western take on a Japanese culture, and the co-star in that as well was Mark Dacascos in a very early role. What was American Samurai like as a movie to make?
So as I just mentioned, they continued with American Ninja series for a little bit more, another 2 years, but then the Canon company went bankrupt. I believe by 1990 or something like that. This was the end of Canon company. The Canon company finished. And I started to work for other companies. And I was hired once by a company that wanted to do something similar to actually, I was hired by them to do Delta Force number 3.
Oh, yeah, that's the one with...
Because Canon Film produced Delta Force number 1, Delta Force number 2.
That's the one with
it went
Cassavetes and Norris and all the sons of the
Right.
Douglas's
So,
son, isn't it? Yeah.
So another company inherited the title Delta Force, and they hired me to do Delta Force #3, which I did for them. I directed for them, and then they wanted to do another movie that will be similar to American Ninja. By then, because of the bankruptcy, MGM got the title. All the movies, all the American Ninja movies were taken by MGM in the bankruptcy procedures. Let's say they got hold of it and they own the title. So this other company, they wanted to do something similar, but they couldn't use the title American Ninja. So they came up with, okay, let's do American Samurai. And we hired David Bradley before David Bradley was in one of the American Ninjas. So we hired David Bradley to be the American samurai, and we needed the villain. And in the casting process, the casting people told me, we are going to bring somebody, you are going to be so impressed. He's a phenomenal. His name is Mark Dacascos. Nobody knew about him then. He walked in to the casting session. Obviously, very accomplished martial artist. So was David Bradley, was an accomplished martial artist, and he has this good look for a villain. What I call nice, vicious look, if you wanted. So he was hired to be the villain. David Bradley is the hero, the protagonist. Mark Dacascos is the antagonist, the villain of the movie. And that's how I got my chance to work with both of them. With David, I made couple of movies. But with Mark, it was the only time I worked with Mark Dacascos.
Yeah, because you made with cyborg cop movies with David. That you'd have been using special effects and prosthetics in these movies a lot more than you had in the past. How was that? How was that, especially in the budget you had? So,
RoboCop came out already by then. RoboCop was a big success, and this whole idea of also the movie Cyborg. There was Albert Payun directed, I think, the movie Cyborg. So this whole idea of a human machine, a cyborg, a combination of human and machine, was already established in the cinema, in the language of cinema, and then another company, New Metro, that became New Image. So another company, New Image. They wanted to make a movie which will have some elements of what they knew that they can sell, and so they couldn't use. They also tried to do something with American Ninja, but MGM was very vigilant. MGM really guarded this the American Ninja brand, and so eventually they decided to do something with Cyborg. And we came up with the concept. There was no script, nothing. We came up with the concept of cyborg cop, and therefore we had to work with a lot of prosthetics to create this half machine, human machine, half human, the cyborg. Actually, we worked with a company in London that they were special effect company, prosthetic company in London. They did all the prosthetics. Because again, South Africa was not a capital of. When we went back to South Africa, then the apartheid was already over.
It was done.
Over, yeah. And we had an artist from London. It was all created in London, in Pinewood over there. But we had a prosthetic artist came from England to South Africa to work with us.
Right.
And, but again, for the director, it's not a big deal. A director, if I saw enough movies to understand, or I read enough about it. It's not like some kind of theories that you cannot grasp. If you are a director and you understand as a director the language of cinema, and you've seen movies like RoboCop or any other movies with prosthetic, okay, and you read about it a little bit, it's not a big deal. it's not a directorial hurdle to overcome at all. It may be time consuming, that's all.
That's what I was thinking. It's just the time, because you probably time is money.
Time and money.
Time is money. You did make, there's a movie you made called Spider 2. It's a question for Pete Bakewell. We asked me to ask you again. It's like, after Spider 2, would you consider making a full-on horror movie? Have you ever thought of that?
So you are coming to a subject of Spider 2 horror movie, and I don't think I will do a horror movie because the horror in the way I view it, horror pictures, horror movies are very typical American product. Very. It was developed here in America for some reason, and it's part of the culture of the kids and the children. I grew up in a culture where horror pictures did not perform at all. When I was a kid, nobody ever imported a horror picture into Israel. Nobody ever. And when the early horror pictures came to Israel, the audience saw them as a joke. You know, they would laugh at the moment that they should be scared. So I don't know if it's a cultural, it's the way you grow up, in the way. So it's very, very, very American culture type of thing, very typical American thing, the horror picture genre. And I had the honor to work with Toby Hooper. He once made a movie, Crocodile, and they hired me to be a second unit director for him. I did not deal with the horror scenes, only with some action. There were some action sequences in Crocodile. And so I had the chance to work with Toby Hooper. He was the master of horror pictures.
Excellent.
So I saw him working. So I would not. To answer the question, I don't think I'm the right man, the right director to deal with horror picture, because I don't have this sense to horror picture. The first horror movie I ever saw in my life was Exorcist. And I was shocked. I never saw anything like this before. I went to Exorcist. Somebody took me. I didn't even know what it is. And, whoa! I was shocked when I saw.
I think back then, many people were back then. I think when The Exorcist came out, they were very, very much.
But in this company, New Image, they made a movie which was called Spider, and they wanted to do a sequel. And again, just like in other sequels in my life, I don't know why the original director was not hired to do the sequel. But anyway, they hired me. And this is kind of semi-sci-fi horror sci-fi. So sci-fi I like very much. I like sci-fi movies, science fiction I like. And it was not a hardcore horror pictures, but rather science fiction mixed with
I
know it a lot.
You mentioned sci-fi there. If I could just say, I did notice something. I've not seen it yet, but I noticed you had a movie on your resume that I didn't know existed. It was taken from footage from our script that was originally done by Ed Wood.
We'll get to this. This was a satire, a comedy, kind of a comedy.
Right, yeah, it looks very interesting.
It's not a sci-fi per se. It's kind of a satiric movie about science fiction movies.
Because I've still to watch that.
Spider 2, we had to deal with creatures, and here I had to deal a lot with mechanical stuff. So way more than in Cybercop. Because we had the spider, the puppet, small spider, medium spider, huge spider, animatronic, blue screen, optical effect. Because once you start to deal with sci-fi, you have to deal with all those technical elements that you need to do a movie like Sigourney Weaver in space. You know, that was kind of similar. A creature on a ship, rather on a spaceship. This was a creature on a ship in the ocean, and the creature terrorized the inhabitants of the ship until somebody, and in this case also a woman, Stephanie Nesnick was the actress, and she eventually prevailed. And she prevailed against the creature, against the in our case, it's a spider, but it's not really a spider. It is a creature. It's a giant spider.
Yeah, it's like the old creature features.
But I enjoyed it a lot because it was a chance for me to work with sci-fi. First time to work with the CGI, which computer-generated images, miniatures, a lot of technical stuff, and I really, it was a challenge, and I enjoyed it. It was great.
Is there any movie that you've wanted to make, or any genre that you've wanted to work in that you haven't been able to?
Any movie that you ask if there was any movie that I enjoyed more, or any movie that I did not work in?
Is there a film that got away? Is there a film you would have liked to have made, or a film that you tried to make that you couldn't, or even just a genre that you would like to work in?
I was really, I got a lot of joy out of the musical. It was dance movie, Breaking to Electric Willow, and I would love to do a good musical or a dance movie. I love music. Cinema lends itself to big musicals and big music. On the other hand, the only other thing is, if I had the chance to do a big budget action movie with all, with everything that that it will require from a money and from a budgetary and schedule point of view, I would love to do a big, and this I never had a chance to do, because if you people know, your listening know, that those big action Hollywood movies, they are shooting like 25 weeks, 24 weeks, two really separate units. One unit is doing the story and another unit is doing the action. And whatever the heart desires can be accomplished when there is a lot of money and big budget. So I would have loved to be involved in such a movie. It so happened that I was not. I never moved from the medium budget to the huge budget, to the big budget. Never happened to me. And I like dramatic movies. I see Imitation Game. Yeah, I want to do Imitation Game. I would like to do the Imitation Game, something like this, a movie like this, or The Story of Churchill, The Darkest Hour. Yeah. Just that my career didn't go at this direction of dramatic. I was branded an action director. So yeah, cinema is cinema. As we mentioned, I would not do a horror picture. I would not do an American comedy, because I'm not in tune enough with the American culture, or I'm not a comedy director.
Yeah.
Though I did direct an Israeli comedy once, the day we met.
Right.
But that's easy because that's culture.
Comedy is cultural,
culture, the way you brought up, But other than that, that's kind of the answer to the question. There are few things that I would have loved to be done, but on the other hand, I directed 25 movies, so I was pretty busy. Very, very busy.
You were, and I mean, as an action director of medium budget movies, you're by far the best working in the 80s, I think. And I'm going to show this to everybody.
Oh, the book! Marcus Sidelman wrote a book.
How's that for a book? I ordered this book, and I thought it would just be a normal size book. It's huge, and it's got so many interviews with yourself and other people that worked on all these movies. I'm not even halfway through it. It's terrific. So yeah, there is a link to Sam's webpage underneath the video here. It'll take you there as well, and you can find out all about everything.
Yeah, it's available on Amazon.
It's available on Amazon. I got the last copy on Amazon.co.uk, so they need to get more in stock.
It's called the Stories from the Trenches: Adventures in Making High Octane Action Movie with Canon director Sam Firstenberg.
Yeah.
But I did not write the book. It's
No,
I
it's
participated. I helped. There is a writer, Marco
Yeah.
Siedelman. He wrote the book, and there are hundreds and hundreds of photos. So that's the nice thing about this book. It's big and heavy. You're right. Here I am.
it's big and heavy.
It's big and heavy.
It's got
But
loads of stuff in it.
many photos in there. There's so many photos, and every
it's-
movie has a chapter.
It's
and
exactly.
all
It's like everything you've ever needed to know about Cyborg Cop.
Yeah.
Every movie's in here.
So the interviews are not only with me, they're interviews with many people, producers, actor, with Michael Dudikoff, with Steve James, with many.
Yeah.
And so it gives a nice picture about it gives a general picture of what it was to make low budget action movies in the 80s, or genre movies. We are calling it genre movies.
Highly recommend it.
Including sci-fi and horror, and director like Toby Hooper, like Albert Payun, like Steve Carver, and there are few directors who were doing exactly the same of movies that I was doing. Shelton with Van Damme, Sheldon Lettich with Van Damme, and there were enough directors who were doing the same. And so the book gives a nice overview picture of what it was to make these movies in the 80s and the beginning of the 90s, the first half of the 90s.
Yeah,
correct.
It's a terrific book. I highly recommend it. You have to read it with both hands or put it on a table. It's very heavy. What's next for you? What are you going to be doing next? Is there anything you're working on or thinking of working on, or is this you now? Are you?
I am totally involved lately in the world of nostalgia, of preserving the legacy. I don't direct anymore. The field, the type of movies that I have directed have disappeared from the from the map. Those medium budget movies, genre movies, action movies, are not done anymore because economically this field is collapsed. Today, action movies or adventure movies, action movies are big budget movies, tremendously big. We are talking 100 million, 150 million, 200 million. You know them all: Fast and Furious, the superheroes, the Avengers, the Spider-Man, the Iron Man. Those are huge budget movies.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned, I did not move into this field. And there are some attempts of making low budget movies, but we are talking really low budget. And on those movies, you don't get more than 10 minutes of action because the budget does not allow it. And therefore, what we did at the time, movies of 45 minutes action, 45 minutes story that we were shooting 9 weeks, 6-day week with 2 units, and good looking action. I wouldn't say fantastic, but good looking, good enough. This has disappeared, and with this, my employment had disappeared. The type of movies that I was making, and the type of movies that people hired me. I did not initiate any of the movies except the first movie that you mentioned, One More Chance. I did not initiate any of the movies that I directed. I was hired. In all the movies I directed, I was hired to direct. So this disappeared. I was not hired anymore. I did not pursue this field of putting together movies. It's a very hard work. Not directing movie, but putting together the financial side, the finances to make a movie is very difficult and very hard.
Yeah,
and it takes a long time. You hear the stories about independent young directors who are struggling to put movies together. Sometimes they put together wonderful movies, beautiful low budget movies, which are dramatic, wonderful movies. And I kind of it happened to me, and I voluntarily, because lately there is so much, and when I say lately, it's in the last 10 years, there's so much interest in resurrection of those movies of the 80s, and so much interest in it, and new old dedicated audience and new audience, young people who come and join, and they see those movies And again, not only the American Ninja movies, the early Van Damme movies, the early Schwarzenegger movies, the early Stallone movies, and there is so much interest. And so therefore I'm invited to festivals. There are screenings of those American Ninja movies or Ninja 3D Domination. The book, suddenly somebody called me a few years ago and said, do you want to participate? I want to write a book about your career. Okay, let's do it. And I'm invited. So pre-pandemic, of course, now everything is stopped physically. And I'm invited to so many, this type of podcast and written interviews and verbal interview and video interviews that I'm amazed. It keeps me pretty busy with just maintaining the legacy, cultivating the legacy and the memories and satisfying. And I see there are so many websites. There is a website for American Ninja. There is a fan Facebook page for Ninja 3D Domination and American Ninja, and more than one. And people are maintaining those websites, and there's so much activity. So beside the interviews and the books and the festivals, I was invited to quite few festivals in the last, just up to the pandemic. And the last thing I participated was a screening here in downtown Los Angeles. There is a theater, a society. They call themselves the Secret Movie Society. And they screen to themselves from print, not from videos, not from disc. They find the 35mm prints, and they had the screening of Ninja 3D Domination. I was invited to do the Q&A and the introduction, and full house. The theater was full. People came dressed with ninja costumes, and people asked me to sign, to sign the books, to sign photos, etc.
But that you wouldn't get that for the big budget movies of the time, because it's like we've talked about, the kind of movies that you made and directors like Albert Payun, they did things that you just wouldn't do in a big budget movie. They took turns that you wouldn't get in a mainstream movie, and that's what's appreciated. I think that's the kind of thing that you appreciate in a movie like Revenge of the Ninja. That's why I can watch Revenge of the Ninja once a year quite easily, put it on and enjoy it every time that I watch it. As people in the chat are saying, and Pete is going to nag his local festival to do a screening of Ninja 3. So
please,
good luck.
You can invite me to any festival. I love to come to festival. And if we're still in the pandemic and the problem, we can do a Zoom participation. Many festivals are asking me to send a greeting or introduction. They screen Ninja 3D Domination. They're asking me to prepare a video, like introducing. Sometimes they do online Q&A. But I was in Slovenia just before the pandemic. I was in Slovenia in a film festival, nice film festival, and they screened the 2 American Ninja. And it's nice to see those movies on a big screen with the audience, because usually people see the movies at home on a television screen. So it's nice to be with the audience, with the hundreds of people, and to see it on a big screen. And usually people have questions for me, and Q&A, introduction. In some of the festival have like 1 or 2 hours of just meet and greet, meet the director and talk with the director. So it's pretty nice. So either physical, but hey, I would love to come to England, to Scotland, to Ireland, anywhere.
Pete, let them know that when you're trying to get them to screen at the festival. I'm sure they'll jump at the chance. And Adams is saying the book is back in stock. He's just ordered it. And Not My Monkey's looking for it just now. So excellent. You'll enjoy it.
It is in stock. It's printed, it's printed.
So guys in the chat, I haven't been able to ask all the questions that were coming up, but Comic Lord, thanks for joining us, everybody. Stencil Artist Jan, Call Me Mark, you're all there. Thanks very much for joining us tonight. This has been great fun. Just listening to you, Sam, talk about your career and all these films you worked on. We could go on for another hour quite easily.
It's my pleasure. I love to talk about the subject the whole time, because I'm trying to, not only myself, but to maintain the memory, to maintain the legacy of this chunk of movies. It's not only the movies of Sam Firstenberg we mentioned, and nowadays we call it the low budget genre movies of the independent low budget genre movies of the 80s and the early 90s. Yep. And there are other directors, we mentioned them. And we try to preserve the legacy of this chunk, or the piece of history in the Hollywood saga, in the Hollywood memory, which is not as glamorous as the studios, but we have to make sure that it's not forgotten, because some great movies came out of this time, this era.
Definitely, and like I say, when you walked into a VHS rental store, you were never quite sure what you were going to go home with, and it was always fun. You know, with those kind of movies, it was always fun just to see what it was.
Correct.
So thank you very much, Sam. This has been
you guys for listening.
It was a real joy talking to you tonight, and everybody in the chat. There's a link down below to Sam's website. You can find everything there. There's a link to mine as well if you're interested in backing Ale So Dark or anything else. Please click on that. We're going to call it a night. Thank everybody. Don't go anywhere, Sam. We're going to leave, but that's been Willie's Movie Gold with the amazing Sam Firstenberg. So good night, everybody, and thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you. Farewell, and be well, and enjoy the movies.